Today, I am joined by two of my favorite people in the Australian scene, Tristan and Anjelika. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks. You guys are from Queensland, so
Yeah.
I'd like to ask if you would just introduce yourselves to the Level Up West Coast Swing audience. Tell us a little bit more about where you're at and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so my name's Tristan. So I started Precision Swing. We actually started in Melbourne, but we've been in Brisbane since like after COVID, moved up. And I started with Angelika in Melbourne, and then she moved to Darwin, and then now we're both in Brisbane. And we're kind of just main thing that I spend time on is trying to build Precision Swing. So we have our own studio. So we're just putting on more and more classes, making more and more stuff happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that kind of was the story of our meeting is we didn't really know each other. We met maybe at one or two events or something, and then Tristan moved to Melbourne, and the West Coast scene in Melbourne had kind of collapsed for various reasons. And I think Tristan was saying, he's like, basically, if I want to keep doing West Coast, I need to figure out who to dance with and who to teach. And we sort of just found each other and we're like, oh my God, you're like the last person standing. Do you want to work together? And yeah now it's, however many years later, 9 years later.
Yeah.
And we're still teaching together, we still train together, and it's we just keep on growing.
So cool. That's so cool. And the fact that you followed each other. So hang on, you also have two people at Precision Swing that were also in Melbourne.
Yeah, we just drag people away from Melbourne.
Yeah. Where's my invite? That's what I'm wondering.
You gotta go to Melbourne first.
Is that how it works? Okay. Okay.
So Jaffa and Chantel also moved up, 2 years ago now? 2 years?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah, so I mean, again, really roundabout route. Me and Jaffa started West Coast at the similar time in Melbourne with a community there. Tristan and Chantel knew each other from way back in Canada, so it's like a real meeting of sort of the friendship groups, and kind of we all just kept on working together, and the enthusiasm and excitement for West Coast was kind of there. And when they moved up, we're like, great, we're expanding, we need more teachers. We've been training them up and they've been really great. And then at a similar time, Abby Vogel's also joined our team, so she's been great. She moved over from New Zealand, and she's been teaching our level 5, which is really exciting. So we've grown from a team of 2 for a very long time to suddenly being a team of 5, and we're like, oh my God, there's more people. What do we do?
That's so cool. I wanted to do something a little bit different with the podcast going forward, because I have a few sort of overarching themes in my mind of guests who I'd like to chat to and why I would like to chat to them. And also because of the Level Up community, we don't have champions and all-stars as members. We're not really built for them. We're built for the broader base community who are generally newcomer, novice, intermediate, and advanced. And so for me, I feel like we hear from pros all the time, right? I see them on other podcasts and I can listen to their input. In my experience, I've found that when I speak to pros, many of them have been dancing for 15, 20 years. And so I'm like, oh, I'm really struggling with this in my scene, and a lot of them can't relate, or they've forgotten what it's like to be in that position. And I know they're mindful of this, and some of them are like, and I can see them go back in their memories. So part of the Level Up's West Coast Swing podcast is I wanted to have people who on the podcast who I might know, who are sort of in a similar situation or are growing themselves, or sort of at that stage of growth where they're trying to improve, but maybe we're all doing it a little bit differently. So my questions to you today, and this will be a sort of a theme going forward on the podcast, is I have some questions about your own personal development in West Coast Swing. My first question is, has there been anything in your dance journey, whether it was very early days, somewhere in the middle, something about competitions, or just your own style or partnership, that you feel like it's like a landmark that you reference back and go, oh, before then I was doing this, and then I had this aha moment that kind of changed?
I feel like I kind of have two. but they're both along the same sort of lines. And the essentially the answer is basically work harder. But but the
Do better.
yeah, so
yeah. Pull your finger out, Tristan. You're not doing enough. Running a dance school and competing is not enough, Tristan. There must be more. But when you say work harder, what do you mean
okay, so
specifically?
the first time I encountered this was with a different dance style, Zouk. And I was going into the weekly classes and I found I wasn't progressing, and I was like, I'm gonna do another class a week. Just do more. And I kept following that process until I got to 12 classes on various styles a week. It's a good time of my life. I was enjoying that a lot. But yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, if I just keep doing more, and because you're taking in so much information, I'm using the classes less for like a resource for information and much more as an opportunity to keep practicing more things, right? There's a good context of like, here's a bunch of prompts from the teacher and the things to work on, but I'm focused on adding extra movement. The other one is when I moved to Melbourne. So I went from that 12 classes a week, moving to Melbourne, a lot less in terms of what was available to me, in terms of what I could do. But because I was getting Precision going and we were working together, there was a lot more drive to work myself and push in a bunch of things. So it's like, here's the informational resources that I've already gathered, time to just practice them a lot.
Mm. And I think
Yeah.
also through that process, like we were meeting, like, because we were doing our own training, like we'd meet at like 6 a.m. We didn't have a studio. We'd meet in this like kind of car park near the mall, like just before anyone came to the mall, and we would just like have this smooth space, and like it'd be freezing because it was Melbourne, and we'd be out there at like 6 a.m. before work, and we would train. Then we would meet on another day in a cafe and like talk about classes, and we were both like pretty new to teaching as well. I mean, I've got a lot of other teaching experience in other styles, but West Coast was something that I was still really working on. And we would just spend like 5 hours planning a 1 hour class, talking about like concepts, talking about technique. Like we were like putting in the hours to really like grapple with our own understanding of how we wanted to start producing our own kind of teaching theories. So that's been an ongoing journey that we keep coming back to. But I think that was like a real turning point of like, I'd been doing West Coast for about 2 years. At that point, I'd been also teaching because I had a weird kind of path into West Coast anyway, which is a bit of a separate journey. But I think for me, I didn't really understand the complexity of West Coast until we started working together and started thinking about it as like a very technical dance that had all these layers. And I think that really opened it up to be like, oh, like this is something I can do for the rest of my life. Because I come from solo where I was kind of really stagnant. I was like, I've pretty much learned solo dancing. Like I've maxed out of that. And yeah, I think like West Coast really sparked the curiosity of dance again for me, which was really cool.
So this is interesting because you say work harder and then you started doing more. And then while you're doing that, you're thinking about whatever it is you're being taught and you're gaining repetition in it, I assume. So by going to more things, you're saying, "Oh yeah, I heard this. I'm gonna like try this out now." While you're in class or in socials or whatever. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like when I go to a class, depending on the teacher, I'll have my own mental model of how I think the dance works, and so I'll be filtering all of the information that I'm getting from the teacher through that. Like if I've heard a better explanation for something, I'll be like, okay, I'm replacing the thing that you're saying with this thing that I know I should be working on, but that's the thing I'm going to focus on because that's what you're drawing my attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that doing more, I had to stop and then do less.
I mean, okay.
So
I mean, I feel like
so
that's kind of what happens, but
yeah, because I felt like when I went through a similar experience where when I first started, I was like, once a week is not enough. Like I want to grow much faster than this. I want to get much better. I love this thing. Okay, so then I added training, and then it's like, and then my teacher said, yeah, you need to go to this other school as well, and you need to learn how they teach it. And so then I started going there, and then I was like, it's still not enough. And it's just like, okay, there's a third class here. And it's just like, you need to find a training partner, someone you can train with, someone similar on your level, and start developing together and both sort of move up the in your ability and grow together, sort of thing. So it's like, yeah, yeah. And so doing all the things. And then what I found was I got to a stage where it was almost like the things that I felt were important were no longer being addressed because there was always this other new thing coming in. And every single social dance that I was in, every social dance, I'm like, I am putting this technique or this movement or whatever into this dance multiple times. Even if it doesn't fit the music or doesn't fit the moment or anything, it's just like, no, I need to drill this 100 times. So if you're dancing with me, I'm just doing it. And then it's kind of like, I remember having a conversation with some friends and like, oh, but do you like the social dancing? I'm like, I'm just training. I'm not social dancing. I'm training. Like that's all I was doing. Like, oh, we're dancing. You might be dancing, but I'm training. um, yeah. So like by the idea of doing more, you obviously have more mental capacity than I do, or way too much free time, Tristan. But
Well,
Yeah, get another job.
yeah.
well, I feel like there are a couple of things there, right? So one is when I'm doing more, like I was saying, I'm deliberately not taking in all the information, right? So like a lot of classes, particularly the ones I was doing at the time, like when they were I was doing solo and partner classes, but when if I'm just talking about the partner classes, I would not at all try and remember the pattern, like not even a little bit. Like just to, enough to get through the class, but like as soon as the class is over, like I don't record it, don't keep a memory. Like I'm there to train the things that are in the pattern or in the thing. So I'm working in a more focused way. I'm using the class as a scaffold that I can go and continue working on things that I want to work on.
So
Or things that I'm
by that, Tristan, do you mean something along the lines of I'm working on keeping my connection points, like saying fully connected to my partner. So it doesn't matter necessarily what pattern you're learning. The technique that you're focused on is more something like connection or the way that you might be getting into your side on a stretch or something like that. Is that what you mean?
Ye to an extent. Like, I feel like I do more of this now. Like, at the time, I probably wasn't doing it quite to that, like, level of specificity, where I'm like, I've got an idea of, like, here are the baseline things that I wanna work on. So I was relying more on the class to prompt things, right?
Got it.
Or, like, particularly a bunch of the classes I was going to, the teachers are good at giving individual feedback to everybody in the class. And so, one thing I always think about is, um, so people are like, you go to a lot of teachers, you get a lot of information, right? Like sometimes you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this information. So I try not to think of like if I have that thought, I try not to dwell too much on the information, and I instead take the idea that it's like people are really good at identifying that something is not quite right. And so I instead go, okay, this is the area that I need to focus on. What are the tools? Like if I'm like, this explanation doesn't make any sense to me. What are the tools that I have available to me? What have I learned? What have I heard that does make sense to me in this area? And I'm like, oh, okay, I need to work on that. Like that's because the focus is really good that I'm getting from the teacher, but it's like, but I need to apply that focus in a particular way to get me to progress.
Right. That's much clearer. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very cool. And so I find that really impressive, to be honest, because it's a lot. There's a lot going on all the time, especially if you're doing that many classes and just working as hard as you were. I think that that kind of dedication is awesome.
Yeah, but I always feel like I'm not working hard enough. I'm like, like I hear I hear how much you're working. I'm like, I need to do more. Like,
Really? Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, it does. It is one of those things that consumes my mind, like way more than I would like. Like I have a company that I'm running. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I keep saying, yeah, maybe I should think about work. Like maybe I should think about my business a little bit more. Um, at times and, not be so not distracted, but consumed by it. But I think when you love something like this, and it's a skill set and it's so complex with multiple layers, you can dive in and then explore
Yeah.
those avenues to the nth degree. And then you meet different teachers who have totally different perspectives on the topic. And then you're like, oh man, hang on, do I want to learn this side of it as well? Which we can dive into because I think I threw you some wrong information at Swing Station the last time I saw you, Tristan. So
Yeah, all good. That's all good. But I want to just on that point of thinking distract. I tend to be able to pretty good at compartmentalizing my time. So when I'm at work, I'm on work. So part of the reason I go to classes is that's a structure where there's some guidance, and so I can stay within that. But it's also very time bound, and so
yeah,
it's when you say it's oh, I'm impressed by the amount of thinking, but it's for me, being in the class, I actually have to do less thinking to get myself going because the class will do that for me, and then I'm
yeah,
using that almost they've got me rolling down the hill, and I'm just going to keep rolling down the hill.
yeah. Don't talk to me about rolling down the hill. You make me feel a bit Anjelika, you mentioned about training and going and doing these things 6 a.m. in Melbourne. For the people that don't know, Melbourne is freezing on a good day. It's ice and oh my God, in winter. Were you guys training outside the shopping center wearing scarves and jackets?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
got footage of us bundled up in our winter gear, and it's literally so it's kind of two buildings, and then there's this wind tunnel, but it's got smooth concrete on it, and so we're great, that's our spot. So all of our recordings has this howling wind through the music,
right, right.
and
These
we just
need to
take our
go up
little
on YouTube.
room. So yeah, we're braving the elements, truly.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say that a sort of attention and dedication is that kind of that landmark moment of oh, if I love this, this is kind of what it takes to kind of have your breakthrough? Is that how you felt about it at the time?
No, so it's funny because I come from solo dance. I've been doing ballet since I was 6. I did ballet for 25 years. I think that for me, dance is very inbuilt to my life, and I've never really known life without it. I may have taken a year off when I was traveling, but I've never not danced. And to me, training is you just do it. You just show up and you train, and that's how you get better. And if you don't train, you don't get better. And I think that that's part of the thing of a lot
Stop,
of people.
stop. Can you
Did I
just
say
say
something
that?
controversial?
Just say that louder for the people in the back.
If you don't train, you don't get better.
It's so true. It's so true. I always say there's nothing that replaces floor time. You
Yeah.
just got to have time on the floor, whether
Yeah.
that's solo or with a partner.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think for me, that mentality of being oh, well, I mean, this is the only time in our week. We both work full time. We have to get up at 6 a.m. and this is our slot. And so I almost didn't even think of that as oh, I'm putting in so much work. I was no, this is just the allocation in my week. You just do it. And so that definitely wasn't a landmark moment for me. That was just oh no, that was just training. It's part of life.
Yeah. So what would you say? Have you had something in specific that you think is a landmark moment for you? Where it's this let's I know you do solo stuff as well. But is there something in West Coast Swing in particular
Mm.
that you found?
Yeah, so I really struggle with this question because I think that we often talk about constant improvement where it's continuity and just being persistent and consistent kind of is the main thing that just keeps us going. It's okay, even if we just don't feel like it, we've got classes to run. We show up every week, we do our planning, we do some training, and I think that that has really set us into just kind of integrating it into our lives. So I think I really struggled to find this moment of being what was it that was a real shift in my own mentality. And I think also coming from solo, that's been its own journey. And I haven't done solo for probably maybe 7 years now. Because I really fell out of love with it. That was something that was my full-time job for 10 plus years. And I just didn't love it anymore. And I kind of almost stopped dancing when I found West Coast. And so that kind of pulled me back into the dance world. But I think that actually I really struggled with coming back into competition because for me, having like taught dance for a really long time, having grown up dancing, having done performance for a very long time, like I did a lot of shows, I did a lot of performance stuff in Melbourne. The idea that I was suddenly being judged for my dancing again was something that I hadn't competed in dance since I was like 17, where we used to do like a Stedfords every year. And that was a real shock to the system for me. I was like, what do you mean I'm being judged? Like, dance isn't about judgment. And I think I went on a bit of a crisis for quite a number of years of really trying to please the judges and like holding my own dance like to the competition standards and having very little success with that. And so I actually took, I think it was like 2 or 3 years off competing. I was just like, I'm just not doing this anymore. It's making me feel shit. I don't want to dance because it's just all tied to competition and levels. And then I went and did the judges training in Korea at the Korean Open. And that actually kind of just blew my mind because I was like, oh, it's based on nothing. Judging is completely subjective. There's no international standards. There's no training, like nothing, nothing, nothing. It is just dependent on the community, depending on those independent judges of what they are looking at, what their dance backgrounds are, what they value, what they're looking for. And I think for me, that was just the moment of being like, I don't care anymore. I just don't care. I can't please everyone. So I'll just dance for myself and what feels good. And I think that actually that improved my competition because I just stopped trying to be something to please other people. So that I think was a really big moment for me that shifted the way that I approached my dancing and the way that I was training as well.
There's a couple of things there that you mentioned about, one is kind of you talked about kind of falling out of love with the solo at the time and then falling in love with West Coast. It's like I feel like competitions for some people is what makes them fall out of love with the dance. Because I feel like a lot of people that I know who maybe haven't felt rewarded for what they put in and that kind of thing, that they can feel like this isn't going to work, or I'm not good enough, or what's these judges don't like me, or whatever it is. But with what you said about switching the priorities and saying, well, I'm just going to dance the way that I dance and dance for myself and enjoy it. And if it happens to get rewarded, then it gets rewarded. But if not, coming from a smaller community where I am, points don't matter. Like, it means nothing, really.
Yeah.
If you're, if you have good technique and everything else, people that you dance with in the community appreciate it and they enjoy it more, and it's a different experience for them. But it doesn't mean anything for us. Like, here we have novice level teachers,
Mm.
novice, intermediate, and advanced. Like, we've only got 2 advanced teachers. That's it. And they're very new. Sorry, no, they're not. Um, they don't have lots of advanced points because we're in Australia. Good luck getting to competitions and earning more than 3 points in advanced anyway. So, yeah, it just doesn't matter. So I think that that's a really good thing to discover, and it does make me wonder whether people in other communities where competition is um, kind of highly prized, whether they feel that more acutely than what we do.
I wonder as well, like, because I know that Australia has its own issues. Like, I mean, you're like obviously in Perth, which is even more distant, but Australia as a whole, I think, events are really expensive to get to. They are like not huge. There's not a lot of them. Like, we just don't have access here. And, a lot of people have, whatever, they're balancing work, they're balancing life. Like, I've just had a baby. Like, all of these things are make it hard to travel. Whereas like in Europe, you can go to an event every other weekend, like an hour away. And I think that to have the same expectation on our community as people who have so much more opportunity and just density, I think we are putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves to still be chasing those points given the setup that we have. And so I think that's where I kind of look at it and go, well, what are the other values that we have? And I think like our values are creating like good dancers, and we really care about that. Like, and it's not, I know like some people have different models of like edutainment and, you know, like creating fun community vibes, but for us, like our passion is the dance itself. So I think that that's where we've really honed in, and found our brand and our passion and what keeps them bringing us back, and why we both are still in love with West Coast after so many years. And I think that taking the focus away from comps and finding what it is about our community and the strengths that we have is something that is a bit of a journey for everyone, individually and as a community. I think we're still doing a bit of soul searching on that, and yeah, it's still people finding their way.
I feel like because you have the studio as well, you have the opportunity to diversify, like for example, like I don't know that Angelica, I don't know that you and I have had super geeked out discussions about West Coast swing, but I know with
You just
Tristan I
pretend to
have.
be dancing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure most people walk up and they see Tristan and I talking and they come up and then they go, "Oh my goodness," and then they walk away. 'Cause
Yes.
yeah, because we are like in the throes of, but if you turn your wrist like slightly 45 degrees on this move, it's blah, whatever, right?
Yep.
We're the ones in the events who are geeking out in the corner on all this techniquey stuff. But I think you've got an opportunity too for the people who aren't like that. And this is one of the things I'm really familiar with in some of the people that I dance with is that I've realized, I like to think about a lot of the stuff, internalize it, play with it, like experiment with what works with who and why to make a technique work. But then when I try to explain it to some people who are just intuitive dancers, they don't care about all the stuff. But if I could say to them, try it like this or try it like this, and then they feel it, it's enough. And then they're there. They don't need to know why it worked, what happened. Like, oh, with this particular person, this is why I use more power through my legs on the one. Like,
Yeah, I feel like this is something we talk or comes up a lot when we're doing planning, because I feel like one of the things that we're trying to do as teachers is, well, we want to collect, all the information, as much information as you can, to build up a good idea of what we want people to be doing in West Coast swing, but we then we then boil that down to what we want at different levels. So we have currently 5 levels of classes, and so we have skills that we want. It's like, okay, sugar push kind of looks like this level 1, looks like this level 2, looks like. So we have a pathway for people to work through. And then when it comes to the class, we're thinking about a lot of what we're doing is trying different exercises and different ways of talking about things that are still compatible, so that we can get to as many people as possible, ideally using as few words as possible.
And I think that's kind of the strength of our partnership, that we've really challenged each other over the years of having very different brains of how we approach things. And
Yes.
yes. Like, and we're at a point now where like sometimes one of us will say something and I'm like, I understand what you're saying because we know we have a common language now, right? We've built this over a number of years. But I would say to Tristan, like, okay, I get what you're saying, but can you explain it to my brain? Like someone who thinks like me, how are you going to make me understand? Because all you're saying is like bleeps and bloops of the numbers, right? I'm like, I am creative brain, teach me. And so challenging each other in that way, or like me being like, yeah, it kind of feels like this. And I'm like moving through the ocean, then I'm like grounded down to the ground. And Tristan's like, okay, so what muscles are you using? I'm like, well. And so actually like feeding off that and making that a strength of the way that we approach our teaching, I think has been something that we have really grown together because we have learned to speak each other's languages plus find a common language. But also like in class, and someone's like, oh, like how does this work? And then Tristan will be like, well, kind of like this. And I'll be like, kind of like this. And they're like, okay, that one makes sense. And that one doesn't really make sense, but I get what you're saying. But someone else will be like, oh no, this one makes sense. So we kind of try and speak to as many brains as possible between the two of us.
yeah, that's awesome. It reminds me, for a long time, people were saying, we want you to turn on your frame, right? I'm like, "Okay," and then
What
they
is
give
brain?
yeah, and they're explaining it like one of the ways is they say just to for beginners, they say, "Put your shoulders up, back, and then relax them down." And, like, that's a feeling, right? I'm like, "Okay," and so I'd be there going, I don't know what that means. And then, like, as soon as I start dancing, whatever that was supposed to be wouldn't be there. It would be like, just turn off. Um, and I'd have to say probably for a good year, I was like, I don't really know what this frame is. I don't know if I'm on it. I don't know if it's in me. I have no idea. I spoke to one of my teachers, Dance Amanda, who's brilliant and such a, she's highly skilled in multiple styles and she's such a good communicator. And I said, it just, I'd probably asked her several times about frame and she'd told me, different things. But I said to her one day, what does this feel like? She said, come here. And she took me to a wall and she got me to kind of put my hands in a certain position, do like a push up against the wall. But my hands were down on a certain angle. And she said, get to here. And then so I got to here and she said, do you feel this just here? I'm like, yeah. And she said, that's the feeling that you have all the time when you're holding your frame. And I can say now that when I try to do that exercise, I can't even feel that because it's always on. But when I did it, because I wasn't using those kind of muscles in that way, it's like if you go to the gym and you go, hey, I'm going to do leg day and you haven't done leg day for a long time. And then the next day you wake up and like your legs are killing you because you've started to use those muscles, you can feel it. It's kind of like that. And so as soon as I felt it though, I was like, "Oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like." And so then as soon as I started to dance, I'm like, "There's the feeling." And then all of a sudden I'm engaging my frame for the whole dance. And it's nowhere near the amount of effort that I thought it was supposed to be that, I got through people communicating it. But because I could feel it, then I was like, "Oh, there it is. There's the feeling of it. Here it is." And this is what I mean about some people. Yeah, we all learn different ways, and I'm very much um, like I like to think about things a lot, but I'm very much kinesthetic as well. So if I feel it, it's like, oh, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Tristan,
So
you've got a thought. Yeah,
I've got a couple of thoughts. Um, so I tend to, when I'm thinking about practicing, I tend to, like you're describing, like go to feelings. But I think of the feelings as like recording of all of the pieces of technique that I've collated together, and I'm just like trying to replay the feelings physically with my body so that I can create what I need or what I want to be doing. Um, so it's more like a practice. I feel like it is like it's a practice tool in some regards. Like, but I'm so in the class, I want to give instructions that can be used to reliably recreate the feeling in other people's bodies. So so I feel like Robert Royston does this quite a bit. Like he'll have a lot of exercises that um, that you can tell what he's doing is he's trying to get you to engage a couple of things in some particular ways that are going to lead you towards what technique he wants you to do. Um, and so it's like creating that like initial feeling. And then when you go in practice, it's like, okay, every time you need to think about that initial feeling and like you're gonna make that happen every time.
yeah, yep. Angelique, what do you think of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Specifically talking about the experience of the feeling of it versus the thinking and the
I think
understanding of it,
sometimes,
like from an intellectual point of view.
yeah, I mean, I guess like my approach to this has changed a lot over the years of because coming from the background that I do, I think very much like expression and just like a feeling is part of it. And this is like something that we've talked about a lot of I think that you need to be able to do both, really. Of say, okay, well, like if you can capture a feeling, and like as a teacher, you can say, okay, like for example, like one of the things that Tristan hates is being grounded. Saying, oh, like just be grounded in the floor, and Tristan was like, what is this? And so for me, I was like, okay, but I know exactly what that feeling is. I know what that means. I know what I need to do in my body. And sometimes you get a novice off the street and you say, okay, like do everything you're doing, but just like be more grounded. And instantly they know it. And that's a learning tool. But I think that for as a teacher, I need to be able to say, okay, that is one tool in my toolbox of how to explain this one thing, but I need to actually understand what it is that I'm asking from somebody. So I think that intellectually, I really like to I guess, feel it first and then figure out what exactly is happening in my body. So if I'm doing like a movement to the side, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting this like whoosh feeling to the side. I'm like, okay, what am I actually doing? I'm isolating my ribs, I'm shifting through my obliques, I'm pulling through my left side, I'm transferring my weight at the same time. And I sort of like backwards engineer it through like a biomechanical lens. But ultimately, I just want the whoosh. And if I can get somebody to move by saying whoosh and they do the thing that I want, I'm like, yes, great. But then I'm like, if that doesn't work, what are the other things that I can do to explain this more on an intellectual level to get people to do the thing I want them to do?
Yeah, so cool. So cool. I love that. I just want to come to one of your classes where you say, "Be grounded and whoosh, Steve." And I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I get what you mean." Um,
I love a
the,
sound.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that those things, it's like when I think about my own learning journey, I think sometimes the things that really stuck with me were like maybe like a rhythm or like the way that somebody said that when they're like boom, ka ka ta. And you're like, oh, I know exactly what that moment means because it's a ka ka ta. And I'm like, I couldn't explain that at the time, but maybe now I could with the skills that I have. But at that moment, I was like, I am embodying that sound, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. Like our brains learn so fast on so many like levels that you don't always need to be living up here in like the most prefrontal cortex moment of highly intellectualizing everything. Cause like dance is such a natural experience. And I think like even like I've got a 1-year-old at the moment and he is loving dancing. Like he knows good music. He knows the music he doesn't like. He will be like, look at
Does
me and
he
be like,
know AI music? Can he pick out AI music?
we have not gone the AI music yet. I will teach him Boots and Cats.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I
But
need to send you a
like,
prize for mentioning that. Thank you.
I love that. I put it in a little playlist. But yeah, just seeing him like move to different music and like there'll be like a bounce and he'll be like ba 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 ba, and then there'll be a slow and he'll be like grooving. And like he's one. Dance is not as complex as all up here all of the time. Sometimes it's just like something instinctive. And I think that this is something I've learned from like a lot of other dance stars. I did Jamaican dance hall, and that is like you walk around the streets in Jamaica and people are just dancing. Like that's it, there's music playing, everybody knows the dance moves. People stop on the side of the street and they just like do a jam. And it's not that they're all crazy trained dancers. They're not like, oh, if I move my isolation and do this, they're just doing it because it's a feeling. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that like I'm really conscious of over intellectualizing dance because ultimately it's supposed to be a natural movement, it's supposed to be fun, but also West Coast is a very intellectual dance. So I think that's why like I love it. It's just like these two things that you're never going to get
Yeah.
bored of because it can be as complicated as you want, but also at a base level, it's just an expression.
Yeah, it's so good. You made me think of, as you were talking, I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent in my mind because we talk about Tristan, we talk about doing more work and training and thinking about, what are we working on and how are we implementing it wherever we are. And I sort of mentioned how when I would social dance, I would be thinking about, well, this is what I'm currently learning. I'm going to throw this pattern in because I want to see how I can adjust this connection. Someone's tall, someone's short, etc., and figuring things out. Um, one thing Semyon would see when he would critique my dancing is that I would be thinking while I'm dancing. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
and he gave this analogy to me because he saw it in a competition. Funnily enough, it was a competition that I last saw you at, Swing Station, Anjelika, where he saw my dance there and he said, he doesn't, Semyon's a very interesting coach because he doesn't tell me what he saw and what he wants me to change or whatever. He just observes it and then he says, "Oh, I've got an exercise for you." And then, but he talked about the feeling, right? And he said dancing is about a feeling. So he said, when we hear the music and we feel our movement in our body, and he said, if we think too much, then we lose the essence of the dance. So what he said was, he talked about the technique of kissing somebody. Like he said, if two people are kissing and then one of them starts to think about the technique of kissing while they're kissing, yeah, he said,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
gonna, you're gonna know, right? Something's not right, right?
yeah.
Whereas if they're both in the moment and they're just feeling and experience the feeling of kissing, then it's a different thing. So he said the same about my dancing at the time. And he said, I want you to move away from thinking about things while you're dancing and then trust the feeling of it. Right. And so as a result of that, I started to train it. And then through training it, I realized actually there's a whole workshop in this that I could, as I've realized the layers of experience that happens as you're doing this, you begin to learn and have some insight about different things that you're doing. And so it's one of those things that now, and he made me change the way I compete as well, because a lot of people would say, Steve, you want to have a plan. How are you hitting this phrase change? Where are you facing? What are you doing? Da 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 da. And like a lot of, um, a good friend of mine in the dance community, David Fan, for example, I would ride the lift with him down to the Jack and Jill, you know, and he'd go, at the time he was competing with spotlights and things like that. And he's like, okay, I want to do a dip and do the thing and do the thing. And he had like three things that he kind of wanted to make sure he had in the dance. However, they showed up, but he kind of had those things. So we'd be in the lift and he'd just be repeating dip, whatever, dip, 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 and he'd like be just saying it over and over. And then others would say, and also said to me once, you know, you want to have a plan to get to the first 16th count break. And then from there, understand exactly what you're going to do, like almost have like a sequence to get you to the first phrase change. And then once you've hit that one on the 32, you can then dance. Oh man, so then I got to do all this stuff. And then you hear Robert Royston say, well, to understand musicality in the phrase change, especially if it's a song you don't know, you want to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, phrase change, right? So then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, face the judge, do the dip, like whatever, right? It was like, oh my God.
I do not envy your brain in those moments. I feel
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
God,
Ridiculous, right? But
dancing.
yeah. And so like I would experiment with all these things and going like, man, this Royston thing's killing me. I can't do this. And then I speak to James Patrick and he said, yeah, Steve, I just kind of hear the music and then if it happens, it happens. I'm like, thanks, James. So like, so this drill that Sammy gave me, he said, okay, so move away from thinking and start feeling. And it changed the way changed everything. So that would be one of my landmark moments, for example.
Oh yeah.
And I think you can really feel when people are in their heads when you're dancing with them, because I think that, like, whatever that moment of connection is when you dance with someone and you're really present together and you're like, oh, you just walk away and you're like, that was just the best dance and I feel so fulfilled. That's not about the moves. That's not about like hitting the phrase change. It's about like being in the moment with that person. And I think you can't fabricate that through like counting the timing or planning a dip. It's a connection of being in the moment and creating something together. And maybe all of those things are something that you train with. But when you're in the moment, like for me, the whole point of training is that so you're not thinking about any of that when you're there.
Yeah. I think about like if I'm thinking about things, it's like there's a time and place for different things, right? Like if I'm in my head, ideally it should be because I'm trying to correct something, right? Like there's something like I've watched a video or I know there's a thing I need to work on. And it's like, no, I need to actually think about this. Like it's not going to change just by me feeling right because I'm trying to feel it and the video tells me that I'm doing it wrong. So I need to use my head to change that, like repeat it, practice it, do it a bunch. But then in the context of like competition or like social dancing, or like when I'm not trying to specifically improve something, I can't use that way of thinking. Like that has to go away. I have to be in the moment with what my partner's doing.
Yeah. Sammy said similarly. So he said, when we're training, we're thinking. And then
Yeah.
as soon as we finish training, or like let's say you're learning something new, he said, once you've like gone through and thought, this is where I'm stepping, this is where I'm rotating, whatever's going on, you do that. And then he said, and then you put on the music and then you stop thinking. And whatever comes out is what comes out. And he said that's how he separates the two things. I remember, so just after I started to make this switch, I at Westeros, uh, which I'm so annoyed it's not running anymore. But Westeros last year, I got very lucky and had a dance with Corinne, um, Kate Kuhn. I can't remember how I say her surname, but um, it's still the most highest level dance that I've ever had in terms of what happened within the dance. But it was exactly what you said, Angelique, where I call it dancing as one, where it's like there's you, there's your partner, and there's the music, and all three of them are one, and you're there, and it happened for the whole song. And Corinne was like doing Corinne things, and big, and it happened to be to a Michael Jackson, like a cover or something, um, which that's my jam because of that's how I started dancing, was with Michael Jackson solo stuff. Um, and after she left, I sent her a message saying thanks and all the rest, and she just replied, and I'd had a private lesson with her, so she gave me a number of notes, but she just said, "Keep learning, keep growing, and most of all, keep dancing with passion." Like, and this whole thing is, I think, something that can get lost in the translation of a class or patterns or technique and whatever, is that you touch on this when you have those dances and it's just like, oh, that was the best. Like that's the thing. That's the thing. That's the passion. That's the feeling. That's the, you know,
That's why we'll keep coming back.
and it doesn't matter whether I added or subtracted counts. Or did I do a hand change? Like, it doesn't matter. Uh, it might matter whether I pull off one championship move, but no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm leaning too much on the Wesley discussion of the day or whatever. But, um, just having those moments. And I remember Maria Lazarova said to me once, I had a lesson with her at Asia Open, and she talked to me about on a underarm turn. She said, "Steve, what you do is you follow after the three and on the four." She said you're following the follower forward down the slot as you step. She said instead of following them down, just cut off to the side and stay rotated. And she said because what happens is that you create the connection and you can begin to enjoy that connection for longer as you are building in the anchor, right? And specifically when she said enjoy this moment, I was like, oh, you're finding enjoyment in everything throughout the movement. Like that's what resonated to me. It's like, how am I enjoying this dance? On the four of an underarm turn, that's a moment where you can begin to enjoy through to the anchor. Like she just only made that one illustration there, but it changed the way that I thought about things. Like, oh, there's just so many moments within a dance that you can just be immersed fully in the dance and love the experience and the feeling of it.
So I think the one of the things that I enjoy most about West Coast swing is actually just like stretch and listening to weight transfers. Like I don't actually care. And this comes like if people have been in any of our classes, or like you've quickly find this is basically all we spend the time teaching on. And because it's like this is what makes it really good. Like just controlling a weight transfer with a partner and feeling how your partner is transferring at the same time as you are. And building and the times you're building stretch, like you're increasing or decreasing connection. Um, just that part of the journey is already so interesting and so gives you so much. Like it just makes you want to work on stretch and weight transfer forever, which is what we do. But yeah,
so it's also in like all of our, so we have like leveled evaluations as well. So basically you can come to level 1, level 2, and then anything above level 2 we start to evalue. And pretty much most of our evaluations, and especially when people don't pass on the first try, because we do it for free, so it's something we do every 4 weeks, and basically people can come in, we encourage everyone to do it and come and get feedback. So we go, okay, this is what we want you to be working on, here are some tools to do that. Most people don't pass the first go. I think a handful. Most people will come back and give like, a few months of feedback, and then we'll tell them what they want to work on. And almost all of it is stretch and weight transfers. Like this, if people aren't passing, we're like stretch and weight transfers, like so much of that. And we've got like a few moves that always catch people out, because we're like, yeah, you cannot do this move if you are falling to a foot. You cannot do this move if you're not delaying. And so I think that's so interesting. Of some like dancers who are really solid novice dancers who have been dancing for a number of years, and they'll come in, they'll be like, yeah, like I've got this in the bag, and we're like, we just want a little bit more stretch and weight transfer.
Yeah. It's like the signature, right? It's that feeling. Shout out to Tessa Cunningham, because she just visited Perth, and I think she taught a workshop on stretch and getting the feeling of it, and the way that she's developed that over time with Miles, and I think she's kind of known for that. She does that through her online course and that sort of stuff. She really sort of leans into it. She had a really good workshop with people who've been dancing for several years, and the way that she broke it down to get them to feel and experience it and then go, oh. And then because she specifically used a weight, so in Australia, she said, okay, we want to stretch and like kind of find a default middle ground for now. And it was 4 kilograms, right? So she had a set of fishing scales, got you to hold the ends, and then everyone was like, oh, that's the level. And then same on a sugar push in the compression, we want to get to about the 4 kilo mark. And then not as a rule, but just to set a benchmark for everyone to work towards. I think that was a really good experience. And then once you feel it, it's like this changes the dance. Like I never felt great dancing salsa. Like it wasn't physically, it wasn't the same feeling. I can see Tristan's thinking he's going to disagree with me. Sorry, Tristan. West Coast swing wins on
I do like
feeling.
salsa. I like West Coast more, but I do like salsa.
That's all right. Yeah, because you clarified that, you're allowed on the podcast.
Yes.
I will publish this episode. No, nothing against salsa. I think salsa is a great dance as well. I did it for 9 months before I did West Coast. And the reason why I stopped was because I said to Dance Amanda, yeah, the music doesn't really do it for me. And she said, try this. And changed everything. I'm mindful of time and our time schedule. I don't know what you have planned for today. I could talk for 8 hours, and Tristan knows that to be true too, because every event we're like, it's more talking than dancing some events. But I did want to ask you how Precision Swing is going, because I know it's fairly new in terms of the new location. And I think, Tristan, you mentioned to me you're sort of growing, and you touched on one of the things is kind of bringing in new people. So I did have a question about this, 2 questions about Precision Swing. How's it going? But also, what are you doing to grow the community?
So it's going reasonably well. So like Wednesday night is going, it's pretty full. So we run 2 classes times 2, so 4 classes at 2 time slots. So we have levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 on Wednesday, followed by hour and a half social dancing. And so that's going pretty well. Friday is newer. It's only been running like 6 months, and so it's a lot smaller. Only has 2 levels, and then a little bit of dancing afterwards. And we also have drills class and level 5 class on Mondays. And so, in terms of growing the scene, one of the things because we've got beginner classes on both Wednesday and Friday, there's more opportunities for people to begin. We run 4-week terms. We also have a free intro class every 4 weeks as like an intake. And we're probably going to add more days as we go because we've got the studio all the time. We basically just need to keep adding more things. The struggle is intake. So because we need to do more on the advertising front. So like this year is the year of experimenting and doing a lot more things with advertising, seeing where we can have success, but that's going to be a lot of work.
So I'm going to make a commitment to you on this because I've
Okay.
said this a few times. My business is I have a marketing agency, right? So
Yeah.
we do Facebook ads. And so I've helped some of the schools here selfishly for my own personal interest to grow the scene because I love the dance. I want the classes to grow. And what I've seen is a lot of the schools are really good at retention. But some of them really sucked at acquisition. So just getting new
we're in
people.
the boat. We're in the
That's us.
boat. Yep.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that also I don't know if this is necessarily true, but I feel like dancers in general, like the larger population of the dance community, aren't their technical abilities with computers and all that kind of thing is kind of suffering. Like it's not their speciality. They're more like, oh, I want to spend more time doing physical things, and actually that's from the industry that I'm from, is in new home building and construction. Most of my builders are like that, which is why I help them with their marketing and that kind of thing online. So
I feel like
Tristan's
everyone I know in the dance community is like highly tech savvy. They just
are
suck at
they?
marketing specifically.
It
Because
must just be the area that I live in. But I have had discussions with several pros. I'm like, why don't you have a website? I'm like, yeah, I'm not good at that. I'm like, well, I'm trying to book lessons and I can't. So like, why don't you have, anyway.
Yeah, I have a website. It's running on a Linux box. It's self hosted at some place that I've set up the mail server, set up I can do all the tech stuff. Just
While we're on that, on the website, what is the website address for the people?
precisionswing.com.au.
Thank you. But I'm going to make a commitment to you that
Oh yeah.
I'm going to build a mini course. I'll have it in the Level Up community on how to advertise on Facebook, how to set up the audiences, and how to do all the stuff that you need to do to get the word out. Because I can tell you that the classes that I've helped do it have generally gone from, they'd be lucky to get a couple of new people or new beginners in each term, to generally they spend about $100 per intake, right, on ads. That's how much they spend, 100 Aussie dollars, and they're getting sort of anywhere from 8 to 16 new people
Yeah.
per intake, and and then some of them are charging. I think the cheapest one is like $80 for the 4-week term, for beginners, and so if they're getting that many people, it pays for itself over and above, and then it's just about retaining. So I will put that together. I've been talking to people about this for a long time. I will get it done. I'll make a commitment, actually. By the end of this month, I'll get that done and make that happen. I'll let you know when it's
Yeah.
out. Facebook's a minefield, and for those who are listening who are interested, if you're boosting ads, which is the way that Facebook kind of teases you to spend money and try to grow, boosting ads sucks. 80 to 90% of whatever you spend on that is not going to go to the right people. So there's a better way of doing it, and you can actually, get some real results. So I'll share that on the Level Up community.
Cool.
Angelica, I'm going to ask you the same question because Tristan's told me how he thinks precision swing is going. What's your honest opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've been doing this for a long time now, like as a partnership, and we have run classes where there's been 1, 2, 3 no people show up for like weeks at a time. And I think now it's been really exciting to grow to a point where we are getting like really consistent numbers. The students are like so like excited by it. And I think that we teach a very specific way, and I think we've honed that over the years, and it's not for everyone. And I think that that is something that we have settled with, and the students that come to us and that love our classes love our classes. And I think that for the most part, like they're going so great, and we love teaching, we love developing it, we love seeing our students grow. It's really noticeable, the students that are becoming consistently, like their connection feels so nice. Like I feel like it's all going in the right direction. And I think that this year, I mean, really last year was a real year of growth where we got the studio, like numbers really boosted. The year before we had brought on like more teachers. So it really feels like in the last 2 years, there's been like this sudden expansion from the two of us slogging it out for a really long time. I feel like we were kind of like honing our skills quietly, and then suddenly everyone's like, oh, you guys know so much about this, oh, you're like really good teachers and you've thought about things. I'm like, yeah, we've been doing this for like a decade, but like now we've got all these people to share our knowledge with. So it's like really exciting to feel like we have a really solid base and foundation that we haven't kind of had. I almost feel like sometimes early success is a bit of a curse because you haven't actually honed your skills yet. And so I feel like we are in a position where we very much have done the hard yards, and now we're kind of just reaping the rewards of being able to build the community and share all the knowledge and build other people up with us. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, awesome. When you say like the students love the way that you teach and deliver and that sort of thing. So um, one thing that I wondered, because you have the studio and you have those extra days, are there other teachers or people in your community that could maybe teach who would have a different style, but the same overarching agenda, but the way that they may teach or deliver content? Is there a way that you could maybe have them teaching on one of the other nights, and so that the people that like your style will come to yours, but the people that might find their style or the way that they share information come to theirs, and then there's this amalgamation of like the super nights where they all come together and do the thing? Is that like a possibility?
We are running out of nights a little bit. So we already have classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Latent Rhythm is the other school in Brisbane. They have their classes on Tuesday.
There's quite a
Right.
lot happening in Brisbane
So
at
there's
the
quite a
moment.
lot happening.
There's also
Yeah.
Jaffa has been starting to organise monthly workshops. So he does like a workshop and social, and he's been really great in basically all of the teachers around around Brisbane who are part of the community who are active are teaching workshops. So I know like Lou and Rob ran one, then it was Abby, I'm next, then I think Natalia, Mackenzie. So there's a bunch of people like in the scene, and we encourage, like, I think it's been a really nice fresh start for Brisbane in the last few years of some people coming in that are new, like Lou and Rob have started as well, like Zach and Maddie are obviously off like just killing it internationally, Mackenzie and Rashania, and we've still got access to them, which I think is great. So there's so many different teachers all bringing their own flavour that I think that for us, we kind of have a pretty established way of which we present our courses, I guess, because we have a syllabus. We work from a syllabus, which means that those classes that we teach, we've taught before. We go back, we've got like our open level one that's 4 weeks. We have 4 terms of level 2, and then from then up, it's like 8-week courses that we are like constantly updating, constantly changing. But even like our other teachers are still teaching from that same syllabus because we want to see progression. And I think, maybe Tristan, you want to talk about this a bit more, but like the pathway for progression is different to when you're just coming for fun. And so I think that our focus has been very much on progressing our dancers through that syllabus to make sure that they are upskilling always in a very tailored way. Do you
I
want to
know
talk more about
Tristan
that?
showed me some of his
Yeah.
we've got like
programs, or like the
spreadsheets
way that
and
you think about it.
documents coming out of our ears. We've got a progression pathway for like what skills we want from each level, how we approach each thing. We've got tons of back work.
It's like a spreadsheet of like, here are the different types of skills, here are the levels of dance, and here are all of the things that we want at each point in the journey. Like, it's to the point where you
This
should
is the
be
kind of
able.
thing that, in
Yeah.
my opinion, Tristan, this is the kind of thing that it would be great if someone put that online. I'm not going to put the pressure on you to do it, but the reason why I say that is because it feels like we are feels like to me, the more I think about the West Coast swing community as a whole, and the
Yeah.
fact that I'm starved for what I need to grow, right? I feel like this is kind of universal. When I speak to everyone, they're like, well, there's 100 different options right now. What should I be working on? And there's a real kind of sense of, you got to figure this out on your own. Like, as opposed to something like, say, ballroom, which is tried and
Yeah.
true. And they say, yeah, you're in this level. Here's the medal you need. To get the medal, you need to do this. But like you said, Anjelika, earlier, like the judging for competitions, for example, is so subjective and it's really not standardized. And so you might have someone who's a novice level dancer who has an outstanding connection and stretch and communication and groove. And yet, for whatever reason, and they might be doing that as well as or as well, if not better, than a lot of people at the advanced level. I see this all the time, and I'm like, well, why? Why is this different? But there's no curriculum. I remember, I don't know if you've heard of this, but there's a thing called the Dreyfus model of skill acquisition, right? It's a popular model used to talk about how people gain skills and grow in a career path, right? So it talks about like when someone first starts in a company and they're at the beginning of their journey and they don't really know anything, and they have someone sitting there and they say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And this is the kind of people that when they first start, they go, well, when the light flashes red, I just have to push the button. They don't actually know what really happens when they push the button. They just know their task is push the button. And then over time, you develop these competencies and you go up, and then eventually you get to a point where it's like, well, I know if I push the button, this is what's going to happen. But actually, because the machine broke over there, I shouldn't push this button right now because I have to fix this, because otherwise it's going to cause some other problem, right? And this is what happens in West Coast Swing, where you develop the skills. And then this is why when people say, don't dance with a straight arm, and then you watch a Ben Morris competition video and you're like, Ben's dancing with a straight arm like for 50% of the dance.
Yeah.
But because he knows what rules he can break and when and why, and he has all the other things going on with connection and understanding, he's rated as one of the best, if not the best leader to dance with.
I
But he's
think
breaking that rule all the time.
Yeah, but I think sometimes like rules-based approaches, you can run into those sort of troubles, like and anchoring yourself too much to what people say can also like lead you astray a lot. This is why we try and think of it like development in
Themes.
progression.
More like themes you think of.
Well, it's more like we have expectations of things and we don't want them to necessarily contradict other things later on. And there are like reasons we teach things in order. Like in the same way that say Brandy talks about like you should have a reason for why you do things in your dance. You should be able to like defend your dance. Like I do this because. You should also do that with the teaching and the learning journey. It's like I teach this first before this because, right? Like I have chosen this order because this skill set is important that it comes before, and it will work well even though like there might be there are things in West Coast where it's like things sound contradictory from teachers, and I feel like there are different reasons for this, and one of them is that you actually need to do both of these things at the same time. And there's like some third, higher, more difficult skill that makes that so you can actually do both of these things at the same time. It's like, oh, this is just harder though.
Just to clarify, there's also things in West Coast Swing that are 100% contradictory and they are not compatible with each other. They
Yes.
have the opposite
Yes.
spectrums of advice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
But
think
they're
Course.
not wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's part of like what we talk about is very much trying to teach people how to filter information so that it makes sense to them. So it's like, oh, okay, you want to dance like this, that's cool because these rules may apply. But if you want to dance like this, then there's going to be a slightly different set. And being able to make informed decisions as to why you are choosing one or the other. Because, you know, like me and Tristan, we both lead, like following is my primary role, but I lead as well. But we are completely different heights. Like if we stand up, we're like this different in height. And so I'm going to teach something very differently than Tristan. Even like the other day, we were teaching like ochos. And I was like, okay, to make this work for a short leader, you actually need to bend more, which seems counterintuitive, but you need the length away. So I'm creating that distance by bending. Tristan is not going to stand by that rule. And depending on who you are as a learner, you are going to need to filter that skill into, does that work for your body? Does that work for the way that you dance? And so I think
So
that
good. Such
we
good
try and,
advice.
yeah, we try and give our students the information so that they can create their own systems of learning and not just do exactly what we say because we said it.
Yeah. We want to give them exercises so that they can build the skills incrementally. So this is something borrowed from Miles and Tessa's teaching course. They talk about like physical skill building. You think about like the examples they give are something like learning to swim or like you learn other physical skills. There's a set of exercises that you do like in progression, and you train them enough so that you can just physically do the thing. I think sometimes you can like where we were talking earlier about like over intellectualizing the dance. I think the trap there is like if particularly if we come from desk jobs, we're thinking about skill progression more in terms of like how we think about what we're doing. Like it's mental processes that we're improving. But we've got to remember at the dance, a lot of what we're improving is just the physicality of it. So we need to practice things incrementally to create that progression.
And I think that's why, like, when we get like stuck in these kind of ideas of like a cool pattern that I want to learn, or like, you know, how many times have I taught a private and I'll say to somebody, "What do you want to learn?" And they're like, "Oh, I just want to learn more patterns and more content." And I'm like, "Okay, we're going to ignore that for now." But like
Yeah.
that kind of idea of training a pattern is you're not actually progressing any of the skills individually that you need to create that pattern. And so I guess like through the systems approach that we have is that we want to pick apart, okay, if we have this pattern, what are the skills that you need to have as a baseline in order for this to succeed? And then go, okay, well, you need rotation, you need to be able to pivot, you need to be able to get to the end of your stretch and then not fall over, you need balance. So all of these like little micro skills are things that you need to train in isolation in order to actually achieve something consistently.
You touched on something there really quickly about pattern learning, right? When I go to some of the classes, um, the young woman who I know left, she stopped dancing West Coast. She said to me, whenever I get private lessons, they want to just stop and focus on stretch and connection. Like, oh, okay. And then she said, but when I dance with you, you just throw things at me that I don't know and they work. And like, I want to learn those cool things. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, they all come out of like, they're not isolated. It's like one thing matches the other. Um, but there's this fine line of like, what's the fun stuff or what people feel like is fun, right? Versus what's good technique. And it's like if we always eat vegetables, and I
Okay.
don't get to have a steak, like, give me a bit of steak and I'll eat the veggies. Like it's kind of like that balance and finding that consistency between what you're teaching. This is what I feel because when I see people leave because they just get stuck on it's all technique, technique, technique.
Mm.
It is all technique, absolutely. But it's like the fun stuff which helps retention. When I've seen people lead the scene. Yeah, Tristan, we'll get back to you. I've seen you put Tristan's such a good student, by the way. He's like sitting there. Um, yeah, yeah. But I feel like it's like, how do you find this balance? And this draws me back to something. I'm just going to share this with you really quickly that I heard on one of the podcasts with Maxime and Tori, and they talked about Lyon and dancing in Lyon, France. And the interviewer, who was American, said, "Everyone says their connection in France is amazing. Da 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 da. What are you doing over there? Like, what are you teaching?" And he said, "Well, we used to go through technique, technique, technique." And he said, and then Tori said, "Yeah." And then Maxime's parents left, and they went to salsa. And they're like, "Why did you leave? Why did you stop coming to West Coast?" And they said, "You just keep wanting to talk about technique, technique, and we just want to do the fun stuff." I remember hearing that right as this person just left, and they had so much potential. I was like, man, it's tricky to find that balance of, you got to have the fun stuff that they love and enjoy, whatever, and then have the vegetables, you know?
Okay, so I feel, like when you talk about food, people talk about, you can hide your vegetables, right? Like they, hide vegetables inside
Yeah.
things, right? I want to make delicious vegetables. So when I think about like making them,
Good luck.
I feel like, but I feel like I, I feel like we get the thinking process around this a little bit wrong when we say we need the fun stuff. Um, Fun is a separate thing you can create regardless of what you're teaching. I feel like where technique classes go wrong is they just like, you need to do exactly these things rather than focus on what is a fun journey through technique that is actually going to make my student have a good time,
That's a good
enjoy
way
the
of framing it.
process,
Yeah.
instead of thinking about like, we must have fun things. It's like, why is technique not fun? I'm pretty sure like that's all I enjoy. Why can't I make the journey good for my students?
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it too, because also I think one of the things that we do here is like, I look at when I'm choosing what I want to learn on my own path. It's like, oh, I saw this Maxence and Nini move on DanceLib. I'm like, well, that move's good because it's got this, and I don't know what's happening in that connection, but I can see they're doing this technique, and they have these skill sets on rotation and different points of connection that I don't currently have. So then it's like, well, that's why I want to learn it, because I want to understand what's happening in the technique here that allowed this to happen. I think that's it's kind of a good way of thinking about, you know, what's happening in that moment that makes that successful and enjoyable and feel amazing. Like,
I think the other thing, just like to add on to that, is like I know that kind of from like our level 4 classes up, we're really pushing creativity and finding different ways. Like the other day, we're like, okay, we are teaching like rotating starter step, which is a pretty basic move, but we're like, okay, this is the theme is connecting moves. It's not about starting the dance. How can you create different things with this? How can you move in and out of moves with this? So it's thinking about shifting away from what is this pattern that I know to how do I create the cool, interesting things that I want to do with the skills that you are learning. So I think that that is, again, it's just a bit of a shift of like the approach, and what we're focusing on is it's not about remembering a 12 count pattern. It's about training skills and also training like failure of, like we did an exercise the other day of, okay, we're in rides. How do you fall out of a ride? We are going to fall out of a ride at every angle you possibly can and create something out of it. Don't stop moving. Find your outwards connection. Reconnect to your partner. Find a stretch and compression, a redirection. So really pushing that idea of not having to memorize things, but training skills to create.
so good. It's so good. This is so cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that because it removes the rigidity of the dance. Um,
Yep.
I've had this experience with a few of the followers here that when sometimes I lead something and it's actually not complex, right? But it's a combination of movements that they're unfamiliar with. And so then what happens is two followers come to my mind, and I've mentioned this to them both, and they get to a point where we've done this sequence, and then I'm like literally finishing the sequence, right? Where I'm just going, okay, now I'm just going to lead a left side pass and finish it. But for whatever reason, their brain is going, I don't know what's happening here, and I don't know what's happening here. They're doing it successfully. They're following the connection. Everything's working. But then they get to a point, and then they just stop because they've had a brain overload trying to figure out what was happening. Instead of just going, there was some momentum, keep moving, everything was working. But then they kind of got to a point where they started to think about it. And then they're like, I haven't learnt this combination of movement so that I'm not 100% sure. And it's like, it's okay. You didn't need it. You were literally 2 steps away from an anchor, and then like everything was good. But it's like this feeling of like, oh, I've learnt the pattern. It's like, now trust the feeling and go with the movement.
And I think from like leader and follower as well, like I've danced with leaders who they'll say things in the middle of a dance like, oh, you haven't learned that pattern. And I was like, what does that mean? Like that shouldn't matter. And
Yeah.
And that thing, or like you won't follow exactly as they expected, and they look at you like you've done this wrong, and I'm like, there is no wrong if we're still connected, it's fine. And I
Yeah.
think like from like the other side as well, like followers get scared and they bail out of things, just as you were saying, because they're like, oh, this is unfamiliar to me. And so I think if you are confident in your ability to maintain connection, it does not matter. Like things can go horribly messy, and sometimes those are the best moments, and you create these really cool like things where you're just like finding your path out of it, and you're like, that was so cool, and you look at each other at the end being like, I don't know what that was, and we could never recreate it, but it was great.
Yeah. How many times do you come off the floor and someone will say, what was that thing that you guys just did? And you're like, I have no idea.
I will never do it again.
Yeah. It happened, then it was cool. Who knows what it was? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I
I
love
think
those
that's just that
moments.
shift in mentality, like both as like what we enjoy about like the fun things of dance, and also like the way that we're approaching teaching has been something that we've thought very deeply about over a very long time. And yeah, I think it's something that is challenging to some people, which is something that's a little, we've had our share of challenging conversations of people being like,
Yeah.
that's boring, we don't want to learn that, and sometimes from other teachers, and that's fine. Because I think everybody needs to find what they love about the dance, and I think we have become pretty okay with not being able to please everybody, but the people who connect with us and connect with our style have like given us amazing feedback and continue
I
to
definitely think
continue to show up, so that's good.
I think that's a really important lesson for all of us to learn. Quick shout out to Kieran Rudd. He shared something. This is about what you were talking about, Anjelika, where he shared something recently in a dance with Mia, and then he said one of the best pieces of advice he had, and I'm going to misquote this, I'm going to butcher it, but essentially it was saying, this is also true for dancing and life, where it's don't spend time figuring out how you got to somewhere. Just accept where you are in the moment, and then just go with whatever it takes to move forward from that point. So, and he said he puts that into West Coast Swing in the way that because it's an improv dance, it's like he might have a plan in place of what he may want to be doing, but somehow we ended up here. That's okay. It didn't go to whatever the plan may have been or whatever the pattern may have been. But we're here now. How do we work at from this moment going forward? And I feel like that's like it was a great piece of advice that he shared, and I feel like that's what it is. Like you're saying, is if you're
Yeah, I love
connected and you're in the moment, and then you can just dance out of
Yeah.
it. That's cool. Like
yeah. And I feel like
those
the
are the
most important thing
moments. Those
is
are
that
the
you're both
moments you kind
smiling
of
and
want.
laughing.
Yeah. Very cool. Guys, we've gone a little bit over time, but I really appreciate you both coming on and sharing your thoughts and your ideas, and sharing what's happening at Precision Swing. I wish you all the best with it. Like, I'd love to get to Queensland and actually attend one of your classes and a social dance with you guys
We'd
at
love to
some
have
point.
you.
Oh man, it would be cool just to see you guys. And I can't wait, Tristan, until we get to geek out again in another competition.
Sounds
I
good.
will be at Asia Open. I don't know if you guys, is that a yes or no? Asia Open this
No,
year?
This
not
No.
this year. This year is a bit of a consolidation year
Yeah.
of really focusing on the teaching and the studio and new family life and all that kind of jazz. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will be at Southern Lights, so that'll be really fun.
Well, it's one I've got to miss. But have an amazing time at the comps, and remember, it doesn't matter what the judges think. Dance your way. Yeah, I'm giving you your own advice, but yeah, have a great time, guys. Thanks very much for joining me today, and I really
Thank
appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time and appreciate your friendship and your time on the floor as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Very
for
good.
inviting us.